all so much for making the time. I'm sure a few of you are sneaking in lunch whilst we speak, so we're excited to be in your ears and on your screens for the next 45-ish minutes. We'll get started in a minute or so let's just give everyone some time to log on and join us. In the meantime, you can grab your phone and scan that QR code on the screen, which will take you to our Discovery Toolkit. There's a lot of great content, ebooks, podcasts, webinars, and so much more for you to get stuck into, so make sure you scan that code there. Okay, brilliant. And with that, let's get into it. Welcome to our e-commerce pulse webinar, from price pressures to AI impact. I want to thank you all for joining us. We've had a massive response to this webinar and have a lot of really great content planned to get through with these epic panelists of e-commerce specialists. Their QR codes are there. I'm going to kick off introductions. So I'm Alex Ross, Senior Business Development Manager at Athos Commerce. I've specialised in product discovery, both on-site and off-site, for the last 7 years, working across hundreds of Australian and New Zealand's leading e-commerce brands, really looking at driving revenue from optimising that product discovery journey. I will pass over to Tiz to kick us off.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Tiz, the Senior E-commerce Manager at Ksubi. Some of you may have heard of us. We're an OG Australian denim and streetwear brand, now very global. And I've been with the business for 3 years now, leading our CRO roadmap, overseeing both web development and customer service.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelley, the Performance Marketing Manager at DECJUBA. You may have heard of DECJUBA. We are a fashion brand. We have 3 brands sitting under the overall arching brand, DECJUBA Deluxe and DECJUBA Kids, and I look after all paid, affiliate and product feed.
Cool. Hi everyone, my name is Charbel. I am Head of SEO Performance here at StudioHawk. Been at the agency for the past 7 years or so. And StudioHawk is a dedicated SEO and AI search agency, and it's been around for 10 years, and my role entails product innovation, client retention overall, improving our service to our clients. Over to Jess.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess. I'm the CEO and founder of Evocative Media. We're an e-commerce growth specialist agency working with brands like Culture Kings, Dish, Ksubi, and many more of a similar caliber across paid social, search and email marketing.
Amazing. What a panel. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And as we look to first set the scene on the current state of play across Australia and New Zealand. So let's start with the shopper. The headline is that confidence is climbing back up. It's not where it was in 2025, but the direction matters. And more shoppers now expect to be better off financially next year. And when people feel better about tomorrow, they spend differently today. So we're seeing it in the numbers. Monthly discretionary spend, the money that people were choosing to spend, is slowly growing. And that's the spend you're competing for as a brand, as a retailer. So the opportunity is real. It exists, but confidence only gets shoppers to the door. To turn it into revenue, you have to speak to the ones that are ready to buy and make it effortless for them to act right. Because every point of friction is where a shopper that can drop off. So that's what we'll dive into today, how we can appeal to those motivated shoppers and reduce friction across the discovery journey. So Tiz, as I said, let's start with the shopper. What are you seeing in how shoppers are behaving right now? Are they more considered and more research-led before they buy?
Yeah, absolutely. Customers are coming to site with much higher expectations than ever before. They want to be guided through your on-site journey. They don't want to be left to browse endlessly with, any kind of confused purchasing decisions. They really want to be guided. So even though we've just gone through a Shopify retheme, and look, we have seen some really positive engagement metrics come through, add to carts, time on site, we're still seeing a high level of abandonment across cart and checkout. So it tells us a couple things. The customers are looking for much more reassurance around product suitability, things like our, customer support policies, and also that they are shopping around. They're smart. They're wrecking what else is out there, and they're comparing business to business. So right now, we really need to make sure that we're focused on capturing those high intent shoppers, and even monitoring things like our screen recordings via Clarity. I think that's been a really integral piece of the puzzle, seeing customers drop off in their browsing, remaining idle, so we can tell that they're comparing things and looking at other avenues. So we need to bring that back. They need to be confident in what they're shopping, and trust the brand and the products that they're viewing. So we're in the middle of scoping out things like size and fit tool solutions, checkout optimizations, and a stronger returns experience as well, to kind of increase that consumer confidence and ensure that they remain on site, that they want to check out essentially at the end of the day, and we capture that conversion. But at the same time, we need to bring it back to basics and make sure that we're offering those high intent shoppers our low hanging fruit of recently viewed, wishlisted products, things that are backing those high intentions. So making sure that our strongest products are in front of the right customers, and that, overall, they're not necessarily buying less, they're just being more selective. So we need to be aware of that.
100%. I always say the most recently viewed recommendation profile, it's not a sexy one, it's not overly innovative, but it performs, right? And thinking about having it on the PLP and not just the PDP or different places across the site. Some really great call outs there, Tiz. If we then start to think about that from a performance marketing perspective, Shelley, how are you balancing the rising costs of ads and thinking about those shoppers being more considered, so lensing that with profitability?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, rising ad cost is definitely going to change the maps moving forward. So, I think where a sale looked efficient a few years ago, it's definitely changing now. And how we measure that is we don't purely look at a ROAS number. That is an incomplete number. It just tells you how much money you're making and not with how much money you are left. So, we actually have that profitability conversation before the campaign runs. In order to do that, we actually have that built into our product data so that we don't have to do the math. There's no one like calculating it in real time. It's all kind of in the platform there. So we actually hold product profitability numbers at a product level using the Athos product feed. So everything is entered through that. We use Shopify, and each item has its profit number or cost of goods sold number, and that gets pushed through to the platforms. This matters because platforms actually optimize towards the signals and product sets that we make available to them. So if you're thinking about your Google, your Meta feeds, whatever you have in your product feed, they're reading that and understanding that. So you can then set product feed labels that actually go, these products are more profitable, and ensure that you are pushing those products as opposed to pushing your markdown or your sale products, which are products that probably have a bit more historical legacy data, so that the platform actually does want to gear towards those kind of products. So the feed actually makes that scalable. If you have a lot of products, this is probably a better and easy way to do it, as opposed to like counting your numbers, thinking about it after a campaign. I do recognize that obviously profitability is something that we aim for, but we also understand that sometimes you just have to clear out stock because it's product sitting there. So in that instance, we definitely look at what is performing. So what products are selling really well, making sure that we are labeling those products and putting those products in front of the customer.
Yeah, being able to automate those labels is game changing. And I think another strategy that I see there is labeling for broken size curve and inventory levels as well. Nothing worse than clicking on an ad where there's only one size left and they've been showing it to you across multiple devices, right? Um, awesome. Then I think, look, Jess, from your side, given we've spoken about that more selective shopping behavior that we're seeing right now, what strategies are you seeing driving more value?
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest shift we're seeing is that shoppers are still buying. And I think that's a bit of a panic that we're hearing from a lot of brands. And I think more so in the Australian market. You still got cost of living pressure and shoppers being more selective and deliberate and mindful of where their money goes, but the demand itself hasn't actually disappeared. So customers are just taking longer to make those decisions, and they're much more conscious of where they spend, which means that the bar for attention is so much higher than it's ever been. People are scrolling past anything that feels too generic or too promotional or even disconnected from what they actually care about. So for brands, it's not enough to have just a good looking ad or a strong offer. The creative really needs to quickly answer why this product, why this brand, and why now. And the brands we're seeing perform best really have very clear answers to those questions. They understand the customer's motivation, they're showing up with more relevant messaging, and they're actually thinking beyond that first click or the first sale, which is really, really important in this particular market. And I think that's really where what we call the growth trifecta comes into play here. So we look at triangulating performance across paid social, paid search, and retention, and having them operate as one integrated system rather than three separate channels. And for what we're seeing, especially across our portfolio of brands, is when those three are aligned, brands stop treating growth in an isolated channel activity and start actually building more of a connected, profitable growth engine around that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach. I just love the word triangulating as well. That one's a fun one to say. I agree with that point as well around like the bar for attention. We're in this attention economy. So I know that you know this and you work and live this, like creative is so important as part of this piece.
Yeah, 100%.
And I suppose part of that, and you just touched on this, Charbel, from your side, thinking about how customer behavior is shifting, how people are discovering products in different ways, and what does that mean for how brands now need to show up?
Yep. Great question. Yes, there definitely has been a shift in the way customers discover brands today. Now more than ever, we are noticing they are doing more due diligence before making a decision. We even have a case study that shows people are willing to even spend on high ticket items through LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, etc. Whether it's furniture, jewelry, high-end items like audio. I guess now more than ever, brands need to audit not just how they come up on Google, but how they're coming up on ChatGPT or any other major LLM, because the data shows that that trend is growing. People are doing their due diligence on ChatGPT before going to Google to make a decision. So I guess now more than ever, the conversations we're having with brands is, how are you coming up on Reddit? What are people talking to you about on Reddit? How does your old Facebook profile that you haven't updated in 10 years come up? What does your LinkedIn profile look like? Because LLMs like ChatGPT are just referencing everything about your brand on the web when people are asking these questions.
Got to feel for those brands that go through a rebrand and have to update every logo
Yes.
center. And I even see copy that's out of date on Google search. It's so much. Hopefully AI can help us a little bit with that. But it's a really good point, and some really good points on this slide as well. We can share all this information with the recording. That's probably a good call out. Brilliant. So then that next piece of the current state of play really is that rise in retail pressures, right? So we've heard this from so many retailers this year about cutting costs around goods, shipping, energy, all of that. One response that we see always is leaning into sale periods. And we've just come off the back of end of financial year. So it's really that perfect example. We've all just lived it. It's played out differently, brand to brand. And that's always super interesting to watch, I think, when we're in the industry, seeing some brands kick off early in June, some running longer and later. This leads me to my next question, Shelley, from your side of things. How do you keep that longer sales period feeling fresh over that time?
Yeah, good question. We definitely ran earlier. I know that's not every brand's preference. So we started a little bit early and got in market a little bit early, but we did have a long sale period. So for me, we think about it in like three different ways. So the first thing is your pace, the second is your newness, and the third is your messaging. So from a pace perspective, I think it's important to give customers a reason to re-engage with the sale. So if you're running a blanket 20% off and it goes for 4 weeks or longer, quicker, how are you refreshing that message, or how are you refreshing that pace and giving a little bit of reason for customers to keep coming back? So that could look like, from brand to brand for us, weekly refreshes, your fortnightly product drops. Are you adding new products into that sale mix? Are you shifting the categories? So for us, when a sale launches and we see a particular category pop off, like, jackets in the middle of winter, we will change our creative and our messaging to really push harder on those categories that are doing well. And yeah, changing what you're heroing. So just so that doesn't feel like the same product is sitting there and you're pushing the same product for however long. So if you're thinking about Black Friday and how long that period is going for, how are you going to refresh that during that sale? Second, I talked about newness. So again, I will come back to the Athos product feed. Newness is a hard one because when you have new products, there's not much product data legacy in there. So your PMAX and your Google ads will want to kind of push the products that have been sitting in your product feed for a long time. So again, we use labeling to make sure that our newness, whether it be for any of the 3 brands, do get pushed forward quicker, because those are the strong performing products, and it also gives existing customers a reason to come back and shop. And then I talked about messaging. So how do you change that messaging? Is it, adding a layer of your outlet into your messaging, or is it actually having fun messaging in your creative? Instead of just saying a 20% off sale, could you say some kinds of like cold weather hot sale, keeping it really, really engaging and making customers want to click your ad and want to come through and shop? So those are probably the 3 things I would recommend for a long sale period: pace, newness, and message.
That's great. P&M doesn't really ring, but pace, newness, message, I love that. On the pace, and you spoke about re-engagement, particularly important for that longer sale period, right? And you said looking at different signals, being able to adapt. What are you looking at? What's your favorite go-tos into what will shift messaging and shift that strategy in real time?
Definitely reactive to what product does well, like I said before. So if we're seeing a lot of customers, so we use a MTA tool, and we're able to really understand what channels are driving what product sales. So if you're seeing email are delivering a particular product through our flow products or our flow email campaigns, those are the ones that we'll go after for our existing customers and make sure that people are shopping. So we do product data. We look at our CDP. We try to understand what our existing customers want. We do look at who's kind of come to the website and dropped off as well. So there are a few things, but we are very product led at DECJUBA. So yeah, that's probably the main thing, is understanding what products are trending to bring back customers.
And that data-led approach, right, rather than going by gut, which we still see a little bit and is important with brand and creative, but there's a place. Tiz, from your side of things, so you run that later in a financial year period, right? So what sits behind that, and what does it take to optimize for margins during that sale period?
Yeah, it's a little unique here at Ksubi. So we obviously don't follow that typical end of financial year structure or timeline. We begin the final days of June and then run through pretty much the entire month of July. So we are still at the beginning of our end of financial year promotion, which sounds very odd. But what we do is promote our red pen markdown products. So we don't actually have a site-wide discount, which again is fairly atypical. And the way that we refresh this promotional aspect when we are on our version of end of financial year is that we add fresh end of season stock to make it a little bit more relevant. And we are continually assessing markdown depth throughout the different phases, week to week of sale. Kind of speaks to what Shelley noted as well in terms of adapting to market. And we're always updating on-site content to speak to that as well, to the phasing, to make it feel fresh and new so that our customers continue to engage and we capture the ones that didn't prior. But by beginning our promotional strategy later, I guess, it allows us to do 2 things. We can commit and really, really back our full price seasonal collections that we released toward the back end of June. It allows us, to capitalize on the stronger margins there ahead of the closing of June itself, but also to capitalize on a reduced competitive landscape. So, there are some other brands that do this as well, but it is a little bit more unique in market. So we can kind of capture that audience. And what we really just see is that the full price and markdown split shifts really heavily for us in July. So it kind of really nicely picks up what would have otherwise been a little bit of a lower month for us. But it's interesting, our end of financial year results month to date so far, AU have leaned really heavily into the markdown space, whereas our US market actually 50-50 still, which is quite surprising to us. So different results year on year for us so far. But what that really just means, and this has always been an always on strategy anyway, but to continue to push our full price journeys just as hard as our markdown journeys. So yes, some of our US customers are probably holding out for our final stages of sale where we have deeper markdown depths. Of course, some of them are savvy. However, some of them just want to shop full price and they just want the best products. We need to make sure that full price and sales journeys are just as strong as one another at all times. So for example, what we do is prevent cross-pollination across all of our collections so that if you're a full price shopper, you're only seeing full price and vice versa, obviously. Setting contextual personalization rules across the site. So all of our recommendations are very separated at PDP level, cart, for example, checkout even, and then just making sure that all of our pathways from content, on the homepage or across the site in banners, etc., are always updated and refreshed. We're not forgetting about full price, even though we're in a promotional period. And then the sale merchandising itself is extremely deliberate on our end. We have a mix of markdown depths. We don't want to necessarily lead with our deepest markdown, again, from a margin perspective, but also on a brand level. We don't necessarily want to push super heavy discounts, our old stock. We want to lead with freshness. We want to remain an aesthetic, cool brand, right? Instead of presenting that wall of sale tags and contributing to bounce or exits ultimately.
Super interesting where you've gone on this later sale, if we say, but you're still tactical and acting like you're in sale when you're not on sale. So talking about adding freshness to end of season, taking that share of the wallet from those sale shoppers, even though you're technically not on that sale, and then you've reserved that for traffic now. It's really, really interesting. The AU and US differences as well. Can you speak to that a little bit more? So you're saying that AU's leaned into sale, whereas US seems to be holding out a little bit longer?
Yeah, US is seemingly holding out a little bit more than they have year on year previously. And I guess, look, there's an element of we have some really strong products at the moment. Our product mix is also itself been improved year on year, we feel. So we've not necessarily marked down maybe as heavily or certain products that are seasonally relevant to the summer market right now in the US. But also we do know that we see some really, really strong conversion toward the back end of our sales where typically what we believe now, we've trained our customer to understand that we go from our 30 and 40% off, 50% off, and then like when we really push the 60 to 70 right in the final hours. So there's that element of like trained shopping behavior, which, pros and cons, obviously, but it's a little bit both, like strong product mix in our full price areas, and then that strategy that the customer is probably holding out on.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think that full price strategy is a really quick win for anybody listening, right? So if you're a full price shopper, are you sending them down a sale journey? If I begin to search on site, is the first product that comes up in that autocomplete a sale product? And if it's a clearance sale product, you've set my expectations already. So yeah, some really great call outs there, Tiz. Thank you. I think that there's that flip side to that price awareness piece too. So we know that when shoppers are watching price this closely, what they see at the end of that discovery has to match what they click through to. So same price, same description. Again, hopefully it's in your size and you're not advertising on a really broken size curve, or worse, a sold out product. I had that yesterday. I've been retargeted the sold out product. So if you get that wrong, we know that we lose shoppers automatically in that moment, right? Jess, this brings me to you across the D2C brands that you're working with, and we've already mentioned ad costs keep climbing. What's actually working to keep paid acquisition efficient when shoppers are being this selective?
Yeah, what we're seeing work for brands is just becoming a lot more disciplined around the creative. So especially when ad costs are climbing, the answer isn't always to spend more. I think brands tend to think that's often the case, but it's actually to make that spend work harder. The brands that we're actually seeing perform best are treating creative as more of a core performance lever. And creative now does a lot of the work that targeting used to do. So the hook, the angle, the offer, and the message matter more now than they ever have. And it's really about creative diversity. So not producing more ads just for the sake of it, but really testing meaningful, different angles. So having a look at what that looks like from an angle perspective, personas, formats, and then as well, I think level of polish. Some creative definitely needs to introduce a brand. Some needs to answer certain objections. Some needs to build trust. And then obviously some need to actually convert that sale. I think the other piece of that as well is really around iteration. When something works, don't just move on and start from scratch. We really want to build on high performing creative through iteration. So the way that we do that for brands in our portfolio is really looking at changing the hook, changing the opening, test different proof points, and then try it across different products and different formats as well. And I think really further to that, and probably quite topical for this conversation, is really around how AI is helping speed up a lot of that, especially around the iteration piece. And so there's a lot of tools that we have been testing over the past few months that are producing exceptional results, which really alleviates a lot of the pressure from a resource perspective that we're seeing placed on brands in order to actually produce the volume of creative needed to drive and scale that growth. I think one in particular would be Higgsfield, obviously Claude a component of that, but really having a look at how you can use AI to support the team on, hook creation, scripts, and then repurposing a lot of that content. I think it's really, really important to say this, that the strategy and judgment still needs to sit with humans. As much as we hear in market that, AI can replace your internal team or your agency, or it can do all of these things. We work with some of the biggest D2C brands in country, and we're simply not there yet. It definitely creates a lot of efficiencies for sure. And if you're not leaning into it, you absolutely should. But we still need that human element. So I think that's really where brands are keeping paid acquisition more efficient. It's not just about producing more creative. It's really about building a better creative system around the spend.
Yeah, and I think I love how you said disciplined on creative. I think disciplined on creative testing and just testing in general as well. So that iteration, 100%. So important. I know that DECJUBA, I've seen, do a really amazing job at that as well. Shout out to their team. So I think on top of all of this, the biggest shift underneath is how shoppers are discovering products in the first place at the moment. And we know it's moving fast towards AI. So people aren't just searching anymore. They're really asking, and the numbers are hard to ignore. Adobe found AI referred traffic to US retail sites was up around 393% year on year in the first quarter of 2026. And this isn't a slow build, it's an acceleration, right? So Adobe only started tracking this channel back in October 2024, and it's just over 18 months, it's grown more than 14-fold. So that's a completely new front door to your store opening up in real time. And what we know about that front door is what that AI sees is your product feed and data. If your data is clean and rich, you show up. If it's not, you're invisible at the exact moment a shopper is being pointed somewhere else. So that's a perfect segue. Shelley, if you could talk us through your experience around how data feed quality has impacted visibility for DECJUBA.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is worth noting that we partnered with Athos, I think it was about a year ago. Prior to that, we didn't really have a feed strategy. We had a product feed, absolutely, but we didn't have a feed strategy. So a lot of the products weren't categorized. There was no understanding of what was a kid product versus a adult product. So there was a lot of things that Google, Meta, and TikTok couldn't understand of our product feed. So just simply ensuring that your title, the category of the product, the price, the discounted price, the image, you can pick what image you use to make sure that you're showing up in the best way, stock availability, and other attributes like your product details, your highlights are filled up actually does help the platform understand what you are selling so that you can automate it and really be quite flexible with what the customer is searching. As you said, Alex, if the data is thin or unmanaged, you're potentially asking the algorithm to sell something it has no idea. about. So when we started, we looked at cleaning up the data, improving categorization, enriching product information, and making sure products were described in a way that platforms understood. So just making sure that for, clothing materials are in there so that if people are looking for something that is high quality wool, that you have that information in your product feed, could improve performance. And then after we did all of that categorization, we actually looked at a lot of experiments. So a lot of product title and product type optimizations and ensuring your keywords are in your products. But one of our entrant categories is denim, and you may have seen our DECJUBA denim campaign. We actually launched an experiment just prior to that DECJUBA denim campaign, and we simply just changed the word jean to jeans with a plural, just an S. And just from a really simple title change and adding an S, we were able to see a lift in discoverability or impressions by over 70%, nearly 80%, I think. So it is really, really simple things that you can optimize for, just making sure that you are optimizing your product feed for how customers search is really, really important and actually can improve your discoverability. That simple experiment, we've changed a lot of the way that we name our products now, because I do know our team do like the jean.
It's a constant battle, I feel, for fashion brands when it comes to like that brand control piece. And yes, this is what performs, but this is how we've always done it and like it.
Absolutely. But these things work because our organic shopping product feed, the revenue is up about 250% year on year. Like, it does make a massive difference, not just from a revenue perspective, because you're giving customers all of that information, but your discoverability as well and brand impressions.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I think the importance of testing those optimizations, understanding the impact, and then rolling out more broadly as well. We can start to understand what makes the difference. Charbel, from your side, working with brands, trying to show up in AI answers, what have you seen actually make the difference there?
Yes, very good question. I guess what actually makes a difference is I think people are looking for some silver bullet or quick hack on, I guess, how to come up on ChatGPT, but the foundational stuff is well and truly still valuable and makes a difference. To jump off what Shelley was saying is, what content do you have on your product pages? What content do you have on your collection pages? What content do you even have on your refund and policy pages? This is something so underlooked, especially with pages that I guess from their SEO perspective, you wouldn't really think to really optimize. But like you said before, Alex, people are going to LLMs to ask questions, and they might be asking how a brand's refund policy page or policy page or delivery works. So you want to make sure, I guess, holistically, you are looking at the content on your website. And another quick tip is for any Shopify retailers is there is a native integration now that they've introduced with ChatGPT. So you want to make sure your feed and your products are well described and well optimized for easier discoverability in LLMs. But I guess the key takeaway is two things. Actually, what matters is auditing what other platforms like Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn, how they speak about you. And two, more importantly, what matters more than ever is how is the content and what you speak about your brand structured on your website. That is what really matters the most when coming up for prompts or search terms on LLMs.
Yeah, absolutely. The FAQ piece is such a quick win. I know people that even have settings in their ChatGPT where they're not interested in purchasing anybody that doesn't offer, let's say, 30-day returns. So then they won't even show them those options. And you might offer that, but it's not visible. So you're in the excluded category. Some really good call outs on this slide as well. I know LinkedIn is one that often gets overlooked by brands and is in that top third position as most cited. Great. So let's connect the dots. Everything we've talked about, discovery, price, AI, it all traces back to that one thing, right? So clean product data, having enriched feeds really is what are making you show up and be discoverable, not just on Google Shopping. That same data drives you across marketplaces and increasing those AI-driven experiences too. I think that link is tighter than most people realize. So when researchers looked at ChatGPT shopping results, 83% of what it recommends is drawn straight from Google Shopping feed data. So your feed isn't just feeding one channel anymore, it's quietly powering where you show up in multiple different ways. So this takes me to UTs when we think about all of this heavy lifting we're doing to get traffic to the site. Really it becomes the site's job once that traffic lands on the site, right? So that experience really carries the conversion. Understanding that you've recently added a conversational assistant on site, what impact has that had on product discovery and conversion for you?
Yeah, so we've seen some amazing results so far. Conversion is actually about 4 times higher for users that engage with our conversational assistant. So obviously it is capturing that really high intent user. And as much as I love for the average user to utilize the entire website and navigate it in its entirety, they're not going to always want to do that. So it reduces that manual navigation, and it allows them to find the right product faster. I do think it's going to be a business must-have for FY27. But it goes without saying, though, AI is never going to fully replace traditional search either. Rather, it's complementing. On-site search usage for us at the moment is still about 6 times higher than the AI usage itself. We just have to remember that, different users have different methods of discovery and browsing. And not everyone's going to be super fast to adopt that AI kind of discovery also. So you just have to take it, slowly with adoption there. But the conversational data overall is telling us a lot more probably than the conversion data at the moment. We're getting a lot of long tail queries through from, obviously product questions, but also customer support queries, pain points, things that they're wanting, but we do not have and we can't offer them. So we're able to kind of utilize this data with its additional context. And again, that long tail aspect to make other platform optimizations, to tweak campaign rules, merch and search, and redirect queries, obviously, personalization logic. It all works together really, but what it comes down to is your quality of data at the same time. So all of this is only going to be as good as your product attribution and taxonomy. So we're actually looking at overhauling our product attribution. It's one of our main projects across the next couple months, where we're looking to add about 100 new values across all of our products and across, I think it's close to 10 different attribute sets to enrich the data across all of our platforms. It all feeds into one another. But I think top level, it's really important to remember that product discovery isn't owned by one means anymore, not a single tool. So search, merch, personalization, AI assistants all need to have that symbiotic relationship. They need to work together, and you need to feed the data between platforms and tools, no matter where they're housed, to make sure that you have that complete holistic experience.
Yeah, absolutely. With that shopper at the center of it all, I think what we're finding consistently through this chat is expectations are higher, shoppers are smarter. They are expecting us to be able to answer those longer tail keyword questions, right? So look, Jess, I know we've spoken a lot about getting discovered and converting that sale or that first sale, and I know you're probably dying to dive into retention. So what should retailers do to maximize customer lifetime value?
Well, I think it's first really important just to really emphasize that own channels are absolutely so critical, especially in a market where acquisition is becoming more expensive and shoppers are much more selective. So paid media is still essential for demand generation, bringing new customers into the funnel, but it's really email, SMS, and the whole retention piece that helps brands extract more value from the customers they've already paid to acquire. And that's really where I think the margin conversation starts to become really important. So if every sale is dependent on going back into paid media, then growth becomes very expensive and quite quickly, right? So if we're looking to really leverage owned media, then we want to have a look at using things like welcome flows, abandoned cart, post-purchase, replenishment, win back, and loyalty journeys to drive the second, third, and fourth purchase. And really, by doing that, brands are starting to improve the economics of the customer over time. So the goal really shouldn't be just to convert that first sale, but it's really to increase customer lifetime value, improve the repeat purchase rate, and reduce the pressure on acquisition, to do all of the heavy lifting. And I think that's a trap we're seeing so many brands really get stuck in, which is unfortunate in this market, is that they think that by spending more, they're actually getting stronger outcomes, and it's not always the case. And I think also looking at how retention feeds back into acquisition, right? So look at reviews, UGC, loyalty, referrals, and customer engagement to create social proof and trust, which actually makes future customers more confident in buying from the brand. So I think for us and our clients, owned media is so much more than just a comms channel. It's how brands actually protect that margin, build stronger customer relationships, and actually create a lot more sustainable growth beyond that first purchase, right? We spoke about the growth trifecta, and I think it's more important than ever for brands to really not view any single channel in isolation, and also not discredit your own media channels, because that's where we're going to start to see a lot of that efficiency, and getting those repeat customers coming through by leaning on what you already have access to and what you already own, rather than having to put budget constantly behind driving those net new customers.
Love that. More than a comms channel, 100%. I think there's so much opportunity there, and I know that you guys work really hard to unlock that every day. It really should be that revenue channel part of that owned mix, right? So final question, throwing over to you, Charbel. How do organic search and technical foundations sit alongside the paid feed?
Yes. I guess my biggest tip is making sure both teams are chatting to each other before we even dive into the nitty gritty. Like, don't work in silo. You guys are working both towards the same goal, which is driving more traffic to the people to ultimately drive revenue. So that's a little tip. Alongside the tip is you want to make sure, back to again, jumping off what Shelley said, is making those tweaks on product pages for your feed can pay dividends for years and years. This is an example. One of our clients, Officeworks, coming up in the shopping tab on Google when typing in a pencil case, and you can see that they clearly really describe the amount of reviews they have, their delivery policy, refunds, price, you name it, they have it. So that's, I guess, what a well efficient team collabing from both sides, from paid and SEO, looks like. And I promise it can pay dividends in the long run when both teams rely on each other's skill set and are constantly chatting to each other. And then on the right-hand side, I put some key benefits of having a holistic search and not being siloed. And what I can result in is, as we all know, cost of ads is going up every year. So it can help with ad spend, reduce cannibalization. Paid ads can rely on SEO when needed, and SEO can rely on paid ads when they don't rank organically for where they want. Enhanced visibility across platforms, consistent messaging. You're speaking to the same audience. You're making sure you're working hand in hand, not against each other. You're making better data-driven decisions. And our favorite thing, better cost per conversion when both channels are talking to each other. And ultimately, all this leads to, I guess, a high ROI for retailers.
That's the goal. Working together in teams, one of your earlier points, really, really valid. We're seeing that more and more as we kind of bridge that gap between on-site and off-site. And I know, Shelley and the DECJUBA team, that's one of the wins from our example of jeans that we kind of spoke about before. Brilliant. Now, look, before we move on to Q&A, and I can see some really great questions there, so keep them coming. Just a quick word on what we actually do at Athos. So everything we've talked about today is Athos Commerce in a sentence, right? We turn your product data into discovery everywhere your shoppers are. It's one partner for search, personalization, merchandising, and feed management, all AI powered, and our channel conversational and GEO assistants make sure the right products surface whether people are looking on your site, across marketplaces, and now in that AI discovery as well. So Chabel, I'll pass it back over to you, I suppose, to give us a quick rundown on StudioHawk before Jess then covers Evocative.
Whoops, I was on mute. Cool. A bit about StudioHawk and what separates us, I guess, from a lot of the agencies out there. Been around for a decade, and we are solely just an SEO and AI search focused agency. That's the main channel, our main bread and butter. A big part of what we do is you are speaking directly to the technician, aka the specialist. There's no middle person. We have won a whole bunch of awards over the years. We've worked with probably over 1,000 brands by now. And we are at the forefront, I guess, of GEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it these days. Let's just call it AI search. We've been researching, testing, and optimized for AI search since 2023. And I guess we walk the talk as well. We have a platform called the Hawk Academy where people can subscribe for free to learn the ins and outs of SEO. And I also included a free downloadable e-commerce SEO and AI search visibility pack that you can download that has practical prompts, checklists, wireframes, and frameworks that you can use to help get discovered by AI and what we're deploying with our clients and what we're seeing proven and tested that works. Yeah, that's us.
Awesome. Jess?
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know Evocative Media, we're a performance-led growth agency, and we specialize in e-commerce and retail, working with brands including Lorna Jane, Culture Kings, Ksubi, Ringers Western, just to name a few. As mentioned earlier, we work across paid social, search, and retention, and our focus really is on helping brands scale with just much more clarity, efficiency, and I think, and more importantly, commercial accountability. And a really, really big part of our approach is connecting those channels together rather than just looking at them in isolation. So acquisition, conversion, and retention all working towards the same commercial outcome. And I think as we look towards I hate to say this now. It feels like it's almost mind blowing that we're in July, but we are already starting to have a look at that Q4 peak trade period. So to help brands really understand what the next 3 to 6 months looks like, we're offering a free audit and I think more importantly, a growth roadmap around what the next 6 months could look like, ensuring that first and foremost you have those foundations in place and you are connecting the dots between paid social search and retention as well.
Yeah, particularly ahead of peak now is definitely the best time. That's great. Okay, great. Let's get into a quick Q&A. Had a number of questions come through, so thank you all very much. I am going to, what am I going to start with? Jess, what's one thing we can do right now to get cut through on social media?
Great question. I think the biggest thing I'd say is to stop creating for the brand first and start creating for the customer's moment. A lot of brands are still putting out content that looks beautiful and overly polished, but it doesn't always stop someone because it doesn't actually speak to what they're thinking or feeling in that exact moment. And the quickest way to get that cut through is really to have a look at those first 3 seconds, look to lead with the tension or the problem or the question or the customer insight, and something that makes someone think, well, hey, that's me, or I need to know more. And it's really about getting that cut through by looking at that creative as the first protocol.
Yeah, amazing. Really great call out. Okay, over to Shelley. Why would I look at a feed management provider if I'm connecting data to Google and Meta already?
as in your product feeds coming from Shopify directly?
That's a native connection, yeah.
So there are a lot of reasons. One, it does help with workflow and processes. So if you've got a lot of campaigns coming up, you can section out your product really easily. So that's something that I found is really good through labeling. Another reason, obviously, as I mentioned before, enriching your data, ensuring that everything is in there, being able to select what images you want Meta to show is also another capability that the Athos product feed can do for you. So we are very brand sensitive in terms of how we show up. So we make sure that the hero image is the one that we want to show. It also captures a lot of data, so you can see what is performing, what's not performing, understand what your click-through rate is, really segment out your high performers from your low performers. So we actually classify our products by class A, B, C, D, and we really look at what's selling on a daily basis, and whatever is in A or B, that's what we really push hard for, and we can label those to make sure that we are putting ad spend towards those products and really understanding what's driving results for the business. So a lot of reasons why they're not just having a blanket product feed direct from Shopify, but those are probably the main ones for me that I've seen a lot of benefit from.
Yeah. 100%. And then I'd add on that, just testing across images, different attributes, titles, and we've seen that really great results there. Tiz, from your side, what AI tools are you using daily, like Claude, Google Labs, etc.?
Great question. Love me some AI, and yes, we use it absolutely day to day. So, Claude, love Claude. We've recently gotten a business license. We actually utilize it to help conduct theme audits. So it's actually providing a lot of constructive feedback about optimizations we need to make to the feed, including any issues, especially in our backend data. So Dev have been across that. We're kind of collaborating on that, and Dev themselves are utilizing AI quite a lot in that sense too. We utilize Microsoft Copilot as well from a business admin point of view, and also utilizing it in ways, for example, to analyze transcripts that we get from our conversational assistant. I will download transcripts, feed it through Copilot, get it to make that analysis for me. And then we're also relying on, we have Profit Peak, which is our data performance platform, and we heavily utilize their AI as well to provide automated reporting based on the top line trade metrics that we need to see. And then, of course, always utilizing the AI embedded within platforms. I mean, that's become a very popular thing as of recent. For example, we're utilizing Gorgeous AI, the customer-facing version, and then the just recently deployed internal version as well. So, yes, very heavily leveraging AI.
I think that point there around making lives easier for our shoppers, but also making lives easier for us as well, and having that platform go both ways.
Yep.
Last question, Charbel, or Reddit. Should your Reddit strategy focus more on brand mentions or keyword focused content for AI citations?
More brand mentions. I have a little case study not included in the slide, but I can send it, I guess, afterwards, on how for a supplement brand, one of our senior team members, I was running the account, they would just audit where the brand was mentioned. Say the brand was called Athos, they would see where it was mentioned, and they would comment on the subreddits when someone would ask something around what is the best XYZ when doing XYZ, and client name was mentioned, and the key was to comment on the subreddits and give valuable information without spamming. I guess that's the trick. People are abusing Reddit a bit because they know it comes up in LLMs. So yes, look where your brand is mentioned, comment on the subreddits. And for that particular supplement brand, our data showed that visibility increased for the prompts we were tracking when we started commenting on those subreddits on Reddit. But don't spam it.
It's always going to go the other way at some point, right? Too. So they'll be aware of those spams. I'm sure that'll hurt somebody's different way. Yeah. All right, brilliant. Well, look, there's more questions here. We will get back to everybody, and feel free to reach out to us as well if something pops to mind after today's session. As a way of wrapping up, I would love to ask each panelist super quickly what their biggest takeaway from today's discussion has been. Who do I want to pick on first? I'm going to throw over to Jess.
Okay. I'd say my biggest takeaway is that profitable growth now depends on how well brands actually connect the full customer journey. So, customers don't experience a brand channel by channel. So brands can't actually afford to optimize in that way. So having a look at paid social search, on-site experience, and retention, and having them all work together. Certainly if you want to acquire more efficiently and bring those customers back again. So for me, the shift is really moving from single channel performance to a more connected and commercially accountable growth system.
Amazing. Tiz.
I mean, given everything I've said today, lean into AI, both in the business admin and customer facing aspects. So test it, learn to read the data that it gives you, always cross-check it, never assume that it's entirely correct. And at the same time, don't rush it, but do not fall behind either. A few contradictions there, but the way forward.
Kind of hover in the middle. Charbel.
Biggest key takeaway is don't sleep, I guess, on AI search visibility. It's nowhere near in terms of, I guess, traffic share from Google, but it is growing. Like you pointed out, Alex, from the Adobe study. Don't sleep on it. Keep it simple. A lot of traditional, or I guess foundational stuff you do on your website that we've known over the past 5-10 years does help in coming up in AI search. I guess the new lens now is to just holistically look at how your brand is being spoken about across different platforms, like we said, whether it's Reddit or LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I guess look at things now holistically, and go beyond just how you come up on Google.
Ellie.
Mine would be, think about your customer first. So don't be reactive in the wrong ways in terms of pulling or throwing more ad spend in. Really understand what's working. What do your customers want? What are they searching? What are they responding to from your creative? What copy are they liking? What products are they buying? Really understanding those things and making sure that your strategy is airtight and ready for the peak season that way.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I think my highlight off the back of this conversation and just seeing so many kind of heads come together is that connected piece when it comes to teams and processes, having ecom working really closely with performance. This all doesn't operate in a silo, and that impacts the customer journey as well when we start to see that fragmentation. So that is, I suppose, Shelley, to your point, customer at the heart of it. Thank you all. We will send out the recording. Any questions that have been unanswered or you've got, please feel free to reach out and we'll get back to you. Have a good rest of the day and appreciate everybody's time.